Hello, all you happy people. Kept you waiting, huh? It's been such a long time since I've done a scripted video like this. Anyway, yeah. Metal Gear is a franchise that I've pretty much heard about since I was like 7. Didn't really know much about it, other than that there was this weird mantis guy who controlled your controller, and that this boring-looking guy with a bandana was in Smash. But since the announcement of Metal Gear Delta, I've been really itching to finally try out this so-called legendary game series. At this point, I knew a lot more about the franchise, pretty much consuming it through
memes, the DNA of the soul.
Besides those, I did know some basics of the games. They were stealth, they were wacky, and most importantly, they were gay. So yeah, I ultimately had to choose between Delta or the Master Collection. I chose the Master Collection mostly because I've heard that since Silent Hill 2 2024 had crazy stuttering, MGS Delta might have it too. Also, I just think charging $70 for pretty much the exact same game you could get for $20 is insane, even if the gameplay has changed a tiny bit and there's a few new voice lines. So yeah, despite all the gripes I've been hearing about the PC port, seriously, why can't Japanese companies figure out how to make functional games for PC? I got it and played it. With keyboard. Why? because I'm stubborn. Yeah, I don't know. I've never really tried playing on my PC with an Xbox controller and didn't really feel like messing around with my PC for like 30 minutes, so yeah. So, yeah, this is the first part of my actual review, much like the Metal Gear franchise itself. Yeah, I feel like the exposition and backstory for this video is getting a little too long, so let's go. So first, a big issue that I saw for Steam reviewers was that the keyboard controls were clunky and unintuitive. In fact, one reviewer said this made the Sniper Wolf boss fight borderline impossible. And if you're hesitant on getting this game because of those reviews, don't worry, because I personally had a pretty decent time with the keyboard controls. I'm sure your wrist and fingers will hurt a little the first few times you play, and the screen telling you things like pressing the X button to punch when it's actually H are kind of weird and mess you up a little, but you get used to that. Still though, you should take a break and move your hand and arm around every 45 minutes, you know? Anyway, on to the story, presentation, and gameplay. While some people might not like that weird green/blue/yellow tint the series is known for, I for one love it. It alone adds so much to the already fantastic environments and atmosphere. You can pretty much feel the cold when you go outside just because of how much blue and white there is. This is helped greatly by the sound design and just the graphics in general. There's something about MGS1's crunchy old graphics that, ironically, make it feel timeless. And it's really easy to forget that you're playing/watching a game that's 2 decades old. I've seen some people play the game with filters that smooth out the pixelation from both the screen's pixely filter and smooth out the textures to remove their pixelation entirely. But I think the game looks better with all the pixely stuff on. I don't know. I just think the game looks worse when you smooth that stuff out. I also think that it just helps MGS stand out graphically from other games. Like I said before, the sound design and music is fantastic. The environments all have these simple but really enjoyable tunes that just add so much to the feeling of the game. The music is mostly synthesizers and simple percussion, which emphasizes the militaristic vibe the game has, as well as subconsciously encouraging you to lay low and be as stealthy as possible. Accompanying the synths and stuff is also a dungeon synth-sounding artificial choir, which adds a more movie-esque cinematic feel, and also helps remind you of the stakes of your mission, and how important it is to take down the Metal Gear before it potentially ends the world. Speaking of the end of the world, it's time we take a look at the story, and man, I love the story. I can't really say much about it that hasn't already been said, but look, there's a reason the story is the most celebrated part of Metal Gear Solid. The story is extremely convoluted and has almost a comical amount of plot twists, but the way it's all presented in the cutscenes and codec calls just really sells it and helps keep you invested in it. Of course, the main driving force behind the cutscenes and codecs are the voice performances, which are they're great. They're phenomenal. Early video game voice acting was pretty known for being really flat and cheesy and just not convincing at all.
This town is full of monsters. How can you sit there and eat pizza?
She said she was fine by herself. She said a fatso like me would just slow her down.
Forget you.
But Metal Gear Solid absolutely knocked it out of the park. The voice acting sounds better than some games that come out even today. The voice acting is so good, in fact, that while you're watching cutscenes, you kind of forget that the characters don't even move their mouths or just emote with their facial expressions. Your brain just kind of fills in the blanks for you because the acting is just so well done by the cast members. David Hayter's Solid Snake does a great job at being a gruff yet likable hero. Any line Chris Randolph says always makes me grin. And every single villain in this game just oozes charisma that, again, is unparalleled in modern games. So what about the actual gameplay? Is it really as good as people say it is? Well, here we have some issues, and unfortunately these issues persist throughout the entirety of the franchise from what I've heard. The gameplay itself is pretty good actually, plays well, even on keyboard, and the stealth is pretty interesting and engaging for a game over 2 decades old. There's some parts that were admittedly pretty janky, such as the shooting and the slight input delay. The only time I'd say this is really noticeable is during the stairway shootout, which, coincidentally, is the worst part of the game in my opinion. I also had a little trouble with the sniper wolf fights, but I think that's just because the sniper scope's aiming sensitivity could have been higher. Also, the backtracking in certain points was kind of butt cheeks, but oh well. So yeah, all in all, the gameplay is pretty good, and I'd say has aged pretty well. Unfortunately, I feel like there isn't enough gameplay because, well, there's a few too many cutscenes and codec calls. Okay, honestly, I didn't mind them at all through my playthrough, but there were times I did really want to get back into the game. I felt this especially during codec calls because, well, there's not much to look at, just 2 pixelated PNGs switching frames at each other. I'm assuming this hasn't been fixed in any of the other games, but one thing I think would be cool is for you to just, I don't know, be able to play the game while the codec is going on. Like have the codec on the bottom while you're playing the game or something. I don't know, just a suggestion.
So yeah, is Metal Gear actually solid?
My answer, yeah. It has a few issues, but it has aged very gracefully and is fun and entertaining throughout. While I don't see myself playing through the game again anytime soon, I still highly recommend it to any gamer who wants to try it out. Solid 8.5 out of 10 game. Anyways, thank you so much for watching. If you want me to review MGS2, which I've already finished by the time I'm writing this, hit the like button. Thanks for watching, have a good day. See ya!